If you're anything like me, you often find yourself scrolling through Crunchyroll's catalog just looking for an interesting cover or premise. Well, that's exactly how I found myself watching the Many Sides of Voice Actor Radio. It's billed as a girl love or Yuri series focusing on a particular aspect of the Japanese entertainment industry, and it's mostly flown under the radar. So, is the Many Sides of Voice Actor Radio worth your time? Well, that's what we're going to explore in this week's episode, so let's get into it. The Many Sides of Voice Actor Radio follows two up-and-coming voice actor idols, Yasumi and Yui, as they navigate the often brutal Japanese entertainment industry. To their fans, they are sweet and pure idols, but their real personalities are far different from the characters they portray. Yasumi is a straight-up Geru with a flamboyant style and a foul mouth to match, while Yui is a plain Jane loner who's equally as crass when crossed. Coincidentally, the two attend the same school and are even in the same class. Yui, being the more popular of the two, already has a radio show, but it's struggling to build a viewership. Yasumi is recruited to help give Yui someone to bounce off of and to grow their audience. The show is rebranded as High School Radio, and the two begin working together, albeit reluctantly. Yasumi has been struggling to get roles lately. She's a hard worker and a very talented voice actress, but she keeps getting rejected at every audition. Despite her deep respect for the industry and genuine love for voice acting, she struggles to see her own worth, constantly comparing herself to more successful voice actors. In many ways, High School Radio is her last chance to re-establish herself and open up some new opportunities. Conversely, Yui is a rising star in the industry. She's gaining a growing fan base and has no trouble finding work. Unlike Yasumi though, Yui hates being forced into idol work. She just really wants to focus on her voice acting. To her, playing a character doing things that she'd never do just feels dishonest. Still, she decides to play along as this will continue to build her growing profile. Her main goal and honestly her dream is to get cast into one of her dad's shows, who himself is a juggernaut anime director known for making some of the best mech shows out there. When the two are first paired together, Yasumi and Yui have little to no chemistry due to not only their opposing personalities, but their opposing views on the industry itself. But as professionals, they make it work. It's not until Yasumi is nudged by the writer of their show to build a real-life connection with Yui that things really start to open up. In turn, we as viewers are taken on this rocky journey of rivalry and friendship, with both girls ultimately making sacrifices for each other along the way. Spoiler alert, I really enjoyed this one. But let's take some time to talk about all of the reasons why. Now, there's so much to unpack about the Many Sides of Voice Actor Radio that I took the time to really break it down into like different arcs. Now, these aren't necessarily the arcs from the source material. This is just the way that I really wanted to categorize this review. So I just wanted to say that first before we start breaking it down. The first episode and a half set up the rest of the series, but things really open up from the back half of episode 2 onward. In episode 3, the girls have a sleepover after mentioning it on their radio show. This really ties back to Yui's desire to be honest. She really didn't want to lie to her viewers and say that they were doing a sleepover when they really didn't. This episode really gives us a lot more about Yui's motivations and struggles. It does a great job of giving us a closer look at Yui's character through her conversations with Yasumi and later Yasumi's conversations with Yui's mother. The way that it's executed really makes it feel natural and realistic and not like contrived plot exposition. It's also a really good setup for the events of episode 6. Episode 4 introduces a major shift in tone with casting couch allegations leveraged against Yui, and that is a very disturbing development considering that Yui is like a first or second year in high school. Up until now, the show has really maintained a really light rom-com vibe, but this issue is really handled with serious care. There are not very many jokes used, and it really is shedding light on the darker side of the Japanese entertainment industry, and I think this is really applicable to just about any entertainment industry. So in turn, the fallout from these accusations affect both girls basically for the rest of the series. Now, as a direct result of these casting couch allegations, their true identities, which are very different from their voice acting personas, are exposed, and it really puts them in some dangerous situations. Now, keep in mind, in Japan's entertainment industry, not aligning with your public persona is a huge taboo, and it just highlights yet another dark side of the industry. Episode 4 also does a lot of groundwork in cementing Yasumi and Yui's friendship, with Yasumi basically risking her career to defend Yui's character. Now, while this may seem rushed on paper, the series has done a lot of groundwork to build up their bond, and it makes this moment feel well earned. Episode 5 serves as a cool down and a transition to the next arc, where we're gonna start to see more fallout from the accusations and the exposure of their identities and how it takes a toll on both girls. Yasumi sees even fewer opportunities considering that she was already struggling, and Yui starts losing up and coming roles, further highlighting this industry's toxicity. Now add on top of that the press and onlookers camping outside of their school, and it only intensifies the pressure and the tension. Episode 6 delves deeper into the fallout, especially through fellow voice actor Mikuru, who harshly reminds them of how their actions affect others in the industry, a perspective I hadn't considered before. Meanwhile, Yui's mom seizes the opportunity to pull her out of voice acting after someone doxes them and takes photos of their home. She's a huge bitch about it, but I get where she's coming from. Big shout out to Yasumi's mom for stepping in and giving the girls a fighting chance. Yui's mom sets a near impossible task for them to complete if Yui wants to continue voice acting. There is a little bit of light in this episode too though. Their co-star and senpai, popular voice actor Atami, reassures Yasumi that they have supporters willing to help them in any way they can. And Yasumi's mom, she's the real MVP. She totally gets her daughter's talent and dreams and is ready to do whatever it takes to support her. Now episode 7 ramps up the conflict again when the girls discover that Mikuru is a voice actor idol otaku. It's an adorable moment that sparks an important conversation, especially resonating with Yasumi. The episode's tense ending sees the girls announcing and completing the task set by Yui's mom. Despite the obstacles and ongoing fallout from the previous arc, they still managed to pull through with a lot of help from their fans. It's very clear that their past actions will continue to haunt them, but they come out of it with the sense that their fans will stick by them even as they adjust to their new normal. Episode 8 serves as another cool down, offering closure on the harassment storyline and transitioning back to the girls actually doing voice work, which is partially why we're here. We see Yasumi being asked to audition for a role outside of her usual type. Though she doesn't land this part, it does lead to an offer for a much bigger role in a major show. Yasumi secures the job, much to the dismay of Yui, who is not only involved in the project, but is also the lead. And this project is a dream project for Yui because it's being directed by her father. And just like that, the rivalry is reignited. I love this development for Yasumi especially. It's hard not to root for her success. She's an excellent voice actor whose own insecurities often hold her back. It was incredibly satisfying seeing her finally get a win, even though it ends up being short-lived. The show doesn't shy away from emphasizing the brutality of this industry. Yasumi's first recording sessions for the new role really don't go well, and she quickly finds herself doubting her abilities again. I found this part particularly relatable. As a creator, it's easy to become dependent on audience reactions and analytics to gauge your success. You can pour your heart into something, but when everything around you seems to suggest you're failing, it's incredibly tough to keep going. Yet, Yasumi's resilience in the face of these challenges is something I really admired. Despite all the criticism and setbacks, she still keeps pushing forward, and it all pays off in the next arc. Episode 9 serves as a bridge to the next set of major events, so for the sake of this review, we'll skip it. Still, there's some great setup, so definitely watch it. Episode 10 feels like a filler episode, though I didn't hate it. There's some really good relationship building between our leads and the other two voice actors supporting them, Otami and Mikuru. We also get a quick scene in the studio where we can see some improvement in Yasumi's performance, but it's clear she's still not satisfied. Episode 11 is where things really ramp up as we're back in the studio for Yasumi's last and biggest episode of the project. She's nervous and things aren't really going well. The quality of the show really hinges on this one performance, and so far, Yasumi hasn't quite hit the mark. The production team is trying to draw more out of her, but she can't seem to find the right delivery. I have to say, this really hit home for me. I saw a lot of myself in Yasumi during this episode. I've been making videos for a long time, but I've never quite found my niche or audience. Like Yasumi, I just keep trying, looking for the right answer. And just like her, I doubt myself all of the time, feeling the same pressure to accomplish my goals and follow my dreams. There's one scene at the midpoint of the episode that nearly brought me to tears. After several retakes, both the director and the voice director come out to talk to Yasumi and the rest of the voice actors, asking them to stay and try the scene again. Seeing Yasumi's shame and fear and her reluctance to inconvenience her co-stars was emotional, chilling even. Yasumi is visibly shaking. Her co-stars, seeing this, reassure her and stay to help her get through it. It was amazing to see her get that support, and it gave her the confidence to dig deeper and try to unlock something bigger in herself. Still, she doesn't quite find the level that she needs to hit, and as her co-stars start to leave one by one, we return to just our duo. Left in the studio to continue the retakes, Yasumi still fails and now she's out of time. But she's given one more shot the next day. She's left contemplating her career, nearly resigning herself to fading into obscurity. We then circle back to the friendship rivalry dynamic which has been driving the show. Yui, uncharacteristically, gives her a little word of encouragement. In turn, Yasumi, backed into a corner, is forced to swallow her pride and ask Yui for help. This takes us directly into episode 12. Now this is the final episode of the season and maybe the series, and it brings us to the climax. The tension is so thick you could cut that shit with a butter knife. We start with Yui giving Yasumi some much needed advice that basically boils down to act like you belong here and dominate the room. From personal experience, I can tell you that is much easier said than done. Maybe I need an eternal rival to help push me too. Yasumi takes Yui's words to heart and prepares for the next day's session. On her way there, Yui meets her to offer some last-minute support and build Yasumi's confidence. Once in the studio, the pair are surprised by the arrival of some of their co-stars who have come to support Yasumi during her final big session. We are then blessed with Yasumi's final scenes where she absolutely crushes her performance. She leaves not only her co-stars but also the director and voice director speechless. Even Yui is taken aback by Yasumi's delivery, which reignites their rivalry in full force. In a moment of triumph, Yasumi's back on her bullshit. What an amazing moment. The season closes with the girls recapping the events and their radio show, bringing everything full circle. It's really a satisfying ending, especially if it turns out to be the series finale. So why did I love the many sides of voice actor radio? Well, there are a number of reasons. First and foremost, I really like the duo of Yui and Yasumi, especially Yasumi. I could really relate to her struggles as a content creator and entertainer. I make these videos to entertain each and every one of you, and believe it or not, I'm always nervous on upload day. I worry no one will watch it, or worse yet, that people will hate it. But just like Yasumi, I keep pushing forward, and her resilience is something to be admired. Now the animation is a bit better than serviceable, but nothing to write home about. However, I will say that the character designs are solid. Yasumi stands out in the sea of Gerus, and I was really attracted to Yui's yellow pupils, which were particularly eye-catching. The story itself has a lot of heart, with progression and pacing that feels natural and earned. That's not to say it's perfect and without any issues. Although this is an ensemble cast, it often feels like Yasumi is the main character. She gets a lot of character growth, but unfortunately, it comes at the expense of Yui. After episode 7, Yui doesn't seem to have much going on, and most of the things that involve her are in support of Yasumi's character. Even the issues Yui faces early in the story don't feel as impactful as what Yasumi has going on, with the exception of the casting couch arc. And even that's kind of hijacked by Yasumi. Yui really deserved more attention and growth alongside Yasumi. Some situations also felt, I don't know, say it with me, anime logic. For example, the task Yui's mom gave them to save their careers. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the character growth that came out of it, but seriously, what mom would make them go through that? And in real world logic, there's no way those girls would have come out of that completely unscathed. And as much as I loved Yasumi's season-long character arc, she was portrayed as a very talented voice actor. Yet, we're supposed to believe that she was just bombing that many auditions. That part really didn't quite add up to me. As I mentioned earlier, the animation isn't the greatest. It isn't bad, it's just serviceable. There weren't any truly beautiful scenes, and the backgrounds were just enough to keep you engaged in the story. Now, considering that the story is based on a light novel, and even though there has since been a manga adaptation, it's not surprising that the animation is just mid. Now, there's one more thing to address. While I didn't have a problem with this because I like stories about friends just doing shit and growing together, I can see why some would consider this Yuri bait. There are a few flirty and risque scenes between our female leads and supporting cast, but I never once believed that any of these characters had a chance of hooking up. So yes, if you come into this expecting anything other than a story about friendship, rivalry, and a behind the scenes look at the Japanese entertainment industry, you'll be sorely disappointed. To sum it all up, I really like this series. I'd love to read the light novel and find out what these characters are up to because I really enjoyed them, especially Yasumi. I connected to many aspects of her character arc, and she's probably the most likable of the two. To be fair, at least for this season, she is the main character. I'd love to see if Yui gets more personal development in later arcs because there are some interesting things left on the table. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please help a brother out and click that like button. And if you're feeling really generous, go ahead and subscribe. I'm trying to deliver something new every week because I love making these videos and breaking down the anime and manga I'm watching and reading. I'm trying to keep a lot of my focus on series that I think deserve a little bit more love, but I will cover some bigger shows too. Now, I'm not entirely sure what next week's video will be, but keep an eye on the community post as I'll share updates when I start writing the next script. I'm actually piecing together an Akira project right now, but we're a long ways away from that. Anyway, let's continue to talk about what we liked, what we didn't, and everything in between. Until next time, peace.